Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of Desi Dynamos, stories of Indian-American Trailblazers, and you are in season 1. Today, we are honored to introduce a true pioneer in the world of motivational speaking and leadership development. His journey from a humble beginning in India to becoming a globally recognized speaker and business leader embodies the very spirit of perseverance, hope, and success. Please join me in welcoming Krish Dhanam, the CEO of Skylife Success and one of the top motivational speakers of our time, believe me. Born in India, Krish migrated to the United States in 1986 with an MBA from IMT Ghaziabad and just $9 in his pocket. Yes, you heard me right, $9 in his pocket. His life took a transformative turn when he won a sales contest and earned a ticket to a seminar by the legendary Zig Ziglar. Hold your breath. This encounter changed the course of his life and led him to join the Ziglar Corporation in 1991. Over the next 2 decades, Krish worked his way up from a telemarketer to vice president of Ziglar worldwide, honing his craft as a speaker and a trainer alongside one of the greatest motivational leaders of our times. As one of the 2 executive coaches personally trained by Zig Ziglar, Krish has since delivered his powerful messages of hope, humor, and balance across 6 continents and 75 countries. His client list includes some of the most respected global enterprises from PepsiCo and Texas Instruments to the United States Army and the Marriott Hotels. Beyond his speaking career, Krish is the author of The American Dream from an Indian Heart, From Abstracts to Absolutes, and he has also co-authored Hard-Headed and Soft-Headed, written with former Microsoft president Rick Beluzzo. Today, we'll dive into Krish's incredible journey, his leadership philosophy, and his passion for giving back through the Mala Ministries, which he has co-founded with his sweetheart and wife, Anila, in 2008 to support communities in his own homeland, India. So without much ado, let's welcome a true Desi Dynamo, the one and only, the inimitable Krish Dhanam. Hello, Krish. Lovely to have you with me today. How do you feel?
Oh, well, after that introduction, I feel greater than I actually am. You need to take me everywhere. You did a better job in my life than I did.
It's very difficult, Krish. The Indian diaspora has done very well, has done us proud and put us on the world map in a very good way. And you are one of those champions. When I read your bio data out, I stopped at the $9. You might have noticed. Krish, tell us, starting from there, you moved from India to the US in 1986 with just $9 in your pocket, but an MBA degree. Can you walk us through that emotional and practically challenging moments that you must have faced at that time? And how did you focus on your goals as you went into a new land of opportunity?
Well, before we get into that, first thing you need to say, my real claim of fame is I was your neighbor in Vizag.
So, yes. So happy that we had the same ecosystem.
Yeah, so when we talk about being in one another's backyard, our backyards literally touch. so the thing is, my wife was born in the US but raised in India. She's the opposite of every immigrant story. She was 2 when her parents returned to India. So we met in business school, and like most people my age, the desire was there were no opportunities in India at that time. You created an opportunity for yourself in what you did, but most of us didn't have the entrepreneurial spirit. We came from working class families, and our parents forced us to go find our fortunes. So Anila moved to America in 84, came back, we got married, and she brought me over in 86. But when she came to India, she lost her job. And I was given $20 as a 1R1 because I'd married a citizen by birth. That's all the exchange they gave me in the New Delhi airport. I spent 11 of it in Frankfurt because they told me it was the land of the free and nothing free here. So I landed at $9 in New York, and Anila had a severance check from her company of I think $140. And but very early in our career, I learned one principle: whenever you get to the end of your financial rope, you tie a holy knot and hang on.
Yes. I think that is the most beautiful thing that God ever did, to tie a man and woman together in a holy knot that makes such a world of difference. And you chose well, you chose a good girl who took you through. And I'm sure, that partnership has been very important. But Krish, you had a degree already with you, but you were a little confused on what you wanted to do. What was the driving force that changed your trajectory in business thoughts and practice? You are well known for your business, what you did earlier and what you did later with yourself. So, what was that driving force inside you that changed the trajectory?
Yeah, first, I mean, as you pointed out, when you start with nothing, hunger is the driving force because you come still from a land where the one thing I'm proud of is my heritage taught me two things: the love for your family and the dignity of labor. And my father
Yes.
always instilled that in me. He said, if you love your family and provide for them and have dignity, even if you have to dig a ditch, you'll do it with humility, but you'll do it well so you become the best ditch digger there is in the neighborhood. And that drive started allowing me to win sales contests because that was the only job you could get. Unlike the other Indians who succeeded, who had the IIT pedigree or the IIM pedigree, I didn't have it. IMT today is a known commodity and it's a contending school globally. But when I graduated, it was one of the first autonomous institutes that really I had no luck. I couldn't claim my degree here. So it was just hard work, determination, working 70-hour weeks, and straight commission sales and setting records that have still not been broken.
Wow. So you were a sales hero. My God, that was wonderful. But there must have been influences in your life. See, all of us sometimes drift. We do not know which side we are going. We think we do, but we finally realize that we are at crossroads. But there would be some educational experiences of people who held our hands and made us think about who we really are. Can you share? You're an inspiration by yourself, and what you have done from nothing to what you are today. Share about educators who influenced those formative years of little Krish as he was growing up.
I'm glad you brought that up because Mrs. Simon in Vishaka Valley School was someone who told me that I had a command of the language, which others had told. I'd won debates in India and was undefeated in that space for many, many years. But she told me that I could actually make a living off of it and I could craft myself into somebody because she said I had a respect for the language, which was unique. And growing up in the Indian educational system, unless you're gifted in the sciences, you really are not considered anybody worthy. And I was basically designed for the arts. I did my BCom, I did an MBA, and all of these were to the consternation of my father because my brother's an engineer and my dad wanted me to be a doctor. But I've had the privilege of starting a scholarship in Mrs. Simon's name in Sheila School in Vizag, just because
Wow.
she has done in my life. And I still thank her every time I speak because she, from a very young age, told me that this language would be my savior, and it has.
That is incredible. That is incredible. But in looking back at the way you speak, the way you command your audience to listen to you, because that is your forte, winning a sales contest in 1990 led you to attend a seminar where you came face to face with a giant. I'm getting goosebumps just saying the name Zig Ziglar. Many of us grew up with so much awe of the great man, the great motivational speaker that he was and still remains in our hearts. And this was a life-changing moment, Krish. What was it about that first encounter with, what you would call in India, Guruji, a person who ignited your passion for motivational speaking? Explain to us what happened that moment, that spark moment.
Well, the day is easy to remember because it was the 26th of January, 1990. And I know 26th January being Republic Day. But we were 1,800 people in the audience that day. Mr. Ziglar was speaking from about 6 to 9. And I was at the bottom of the barrel in terms of hope. I was doing well professionally, but I wanted something more. And then he started speaking. He said, if standard of living is your number one priority, quality of life will never improve. But quality of living is your number one priority, standard of living will always follow. And I'd been raised to always struggle, get it, earn, and move to the next. So now what he was telling me was money will buy you a house, it'll never buy you a home, it'll buy you a bed, never a good night's sleep. Some of these motivational maxims began to now change that mindset. Now remember, this is 1990, so I'm 28 years. I am a little bit into this country. I understand that I don't have the pedigree to get ahead. I now need to change. And that was the decision that we made. So I took about 8 pages of notes and began to internalize them. He said, you treat your wife like a thoroughbred, you won't end up with a nag. He used all these, these colloquialisms. And again, I've been raised in a male-dominant society. So to call my wife, I call her my bride, putting on her a pedestal, changing the way I lived by honoring her, by making a promise to her in the morning that everything I did will to honor her. And that changed me because it was very opposite of how I was raised. I mean, I knew love existed, but I never knew that love expressed is more than just pure love existing. And I decided I would be a practitioner of love expressed. And I began to start the way I spoke to my parents. And eventually everybody was happy with the decision I made, because here's something, actually, that most people don't know. An old sales guru once said this. He said, every night, 3 billion people go to bed hungry for food, but 4 billion go to bed hungry for a word of encouragement. That struck me. And I realized then I wanted to become a conveyor of encouragement because of, so that's the Reader's Digest version, I guess.
Wow, wow. Now, I take you back again to the first encounter with Zig Ziglar. You started working with him as teleprompter, but you rose to finish as vice president of the Ziglar Corporation. And that's a very large jump in a new country. The USA is a wonderfully loving, opportunistic country that takes us in and gives us, the grounds to grow. But this is incredible. Tell us that story, how a teleprompter from India, from a simple background, made it in such a great corporation. And you ended your innings there as vice president. Let us know how that journey was.
But just like Amitabh Bachchan's movie 101 Not Out, I'm still the global ambassador of that organization for life. So I didn't end my there. They gave me a emeritus position because of the work I did. But when I started as a telemarketer there, I did something unique. I used my MBA for the first time, and I made a proposal to the company. And Mr. Ziglar always taught a principle that I thought I would apply in his own company to see if it worked. His principle was, anything you want in this world, ask for it. If they don't give it to you, that would have been the answer had you never asked. So you don't lose, you break even. So I said, he had a position of a guy who traveled with him, but I was hired to sell books and tapes on the phone. So I wrote a proposal to them which simply had 3 points. Let me do both jobs for a period of a year. If I fail at either one, fire me from both. Don't pay me for the second job till you feel that I have done good at both. So what they had was a no-lose proposition. They let go of the other guy because legally they were allowed to, because they were not creating a new job. I was going to do both jobs, and that's how I began to travel with him, knowing jolly well that if I got a front seat next to this man, I would convince him and he would convince me. So about 3 months into that, he told the company, this guy is too valuable. He understands what I do. Relieve him of all other responsibilities. From now till the day I die, he will travel with me. And that's how that journey began.
Wonderful, I still remember the first time I actually noticed you was at the alumni meeting of our school. And your name was announced, and we were in the audience, and you walked up, and I was just there as part of the furniture. And suddenly you opened your mouth, and your first line got me laughing loudly. And I said, wow, who's this fabulous guy whom I missed out with such a fabulous sense of humor? Now I know that you have delivered motivational talks through fun and humor in more than 75 countries. It's your selling point. You have developed a truly global presence. I mean, you just cannot talk just like that. You have worked on it and worked rightly so with your guide. What are the cultural nuances of differences have you encountered while delivering motivational messages across continents? Have you realized any cultural nuances, or people realize he is from India, from maybe a third world country, and he's speaking like this? Do you get your brownie points because you do good and as good as many of the others? And how is it? How was the diverse audience that you talk to? How do they react to you? Like how I reacted to you?
Well, here's the. It's a very. That's a good observation. But one thing that unites the world is we all have a common history of pain, and we have a common desire of hope. So if you can make light of your own hope and make light of your own pain, and in the process show them hope, immediately they will adhere to you. So I tell people, before you want to strengthen anybody as a carrier, spend a little time lightening their load, and then they'll walk with you. So that's one of the things I realized about the universality. So whether it was Cold War Russia right after the wall fell, whether it was Romania, wherever it was, I realized that everybody comes with a baggage of pain. I want to make light of that, but I also want to give them focus for what's around the corner. And I think what connected me around the world was the fact that I came from a simple background. My mother and father were very, I did not have the pedigree of some education, and I was not talking to them from a mountaintop. I was talking to them in the valley saying, let's go to the mountaintop together.
Wow, wow. The concept of talking from the valley and the mountain has been your observation, and you've given equal status to people who have been on top and people who have been at the bottom, because you've seen the yo-yo. But, you were personally, just two of you were actually trained personally by Mr. Ziglar himself, and some profound lessons have been learned, I'm sure, by both of you. But as the CEO of Skylife Success, you co-founded your own training company. What is the leadership philosophy that Krish Dhanam had, which incorporated his own selling point, your soul? What was it that was the you part of your cornerstone of the CEO of the Skylife Success? And today's life is so fast-paced, and the business world is changing. But still, when people say Zig Ziglar, there's a word that comes out. That is him. What do they say when we say Krish Dhanam? What is that one word or the one skill or the one lesson, one philosophy that Krish Dhanam wishes to leave back for all that he has done in training and motivation?
Well, I hope they'll say, like they said of my mentor, Mr. Ziglar, that I was consistent and what you saw is what you got. But if I had a business philosophy that I would consider my own, it's an amalgamation of what I watched others do. I said, rather than look at the mountaintop, which is elusive, look back to the origins of where you came from. If every day you work to bring enough people from where you were to where you are, they'll take you to the mountaintop on their shoulders. So don't just play a push game, but play a pull game as well. And these are some things that along the way I have invested in rural communities. So I use that philosophy foundationally and statistically. I only work half the year to earn a living, but the other half of the year I go serve the rest of the world to shape lives. So I have a formula where I earn enough in half a year to take care of our needs for the year, and the other half I go. So corporately is a philosophy that I also use and used extensively during COVID. I was one of the first people doing paid keynotes virtually. My philosophy in life is always trifecta. I said, for those that pay you for your talent, they will always pay you for your talent, and don't discount. Second, bargain with those that don't know who you are but need to. And third, give it away to those that cannot afford you.
Wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. It's profound. It's profound. Krish, many of us do things in life, but we do not know how to disconnect with ourselves and move on to something more meaningful. But for you, a Brahmin boy from India who came to the United States, took control of motivation in a big way, became one of the well-known speakers, wrote books, co-authored with the Microsoft chief. You did very well as a writer, as an author, as a speaker. But I would like to remind you of that day when God came to you in a very special way. Very few of us are lucky to get that signal. Faith has always been a cornerstone for you. Why has faith? It doesn't matter which faith, but you have had faith as your cornerstone. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, my origins are I grew up in a Brahmin family. I come from Orthodoxy. My father's uncle's names are on temple stones. So that was a point of discontent with my father when I made some choices. But when I came to the West, one of the things I did was, and I'll give you the reason. See, happiness depends on happenings. It's event based, but joy is undiluted. When you acquire stuff, you still have that aching hole in your heart. So I was seeking joy because it was not coming from the house I now had, the cars I now had, the trips I was now taking. So I studied all the worldviews. Of course, I settled on the Judeo-Christian worldview, and that. So in God became real in my life through Mr. Ziglar, and I asked him one time. I said, Mr. Ziglar, what do you want people to say about your life? And he said that he lived with integrity, he excelled with positivity, but he left a legacy. And I thought to
Wow.
myself, if I lived with integrity, constantly exercise the positivity, and leave a legacy, that would be good. So I started working on my own research, and this is what I stumbled on, that man is tridimensional. We are mental, physical, and spiritual. Everybody on planet Earth, 8.25 billion, have been gifted with intellect. God has given everybody some amount of talent. He's given some more than others, but not left anyone without any. So we all have a mind. Second, we all have a body that we play in time and space. But the third is the spirit. And everybody searches for different things, and that's why we are unique in what we search for. And I began to realize that I wanted to spend a third of my day exercising the mind. I wanted to be a third of the day participating in things, and a third of the day seeking favor. Now, let me explain it to your audience in the simplest way I know. The way I live is every day I make sure that the head I think with is acknowledged. Every day I walk, I want the heart that pumps blood in me for people to say he truly loves and adores and he serves. But I also want them to see my physical hands giving. So,
It's amazing. Krish, you married a beautiful girl. The first time you saw her, you knew that she was meant for you. But she changed your life in more than one way. She never, ever interfered with your thoughts, your religion, or your actions till the day she gave you a child, and then you had to decide. And it's very, I actually had tears in my eyes when I heard you say that a little boy whom you were, looking at as your own son, you wanted to stand next to him in every way, including faith. What a beautiful reason for a human being to actually take up God in a different way. God is one, but tell us about how God came to you and how your motivational skills, your talking powers, your clear thoughts, your cognitive ideas, they all merged into one stream, and that was the stream of faith. It's beautiful because you now know very clearly you're no more the drifter. You are now in a stream of love, happiness, and gratitude.
yeah.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, and it's an important attribute because, like I said, I travel all over the world. I speak in the academy all over the world, and most of my audiences are people who come from different faiths. But when I unify it through the love of the family, the love of work, suddenly they begin to realize that the lens at which we look at the world is not as important as how the world is looking at you. So what is, are you wishy-washy, and are you, so here's what my faith has taught me is character. Character is the ability to have pride in the mundane. The mundane is what we do every day. So whether I'm talking to a rickshaw puller in my hometown because the auto rickshaw is not available, or I'm talking to a cab driver, or but wherever I am, I always make sure that people see that consistency and that character, that love, and that ability. So this has helped me immensely because people always say to me, in fact, my father used to get mad at me when I put my arms around someone in a restaurant and I asked the kid, what's his name? And my father will say, we don't know who he is. And I said, well, he's part of the human race, and that's good enough for me. So,
Krish, you've traveled many countries. Which is your favorite country and what keeps you going back to that country?
the country that I visited the most is the Philippines. I've been there maybe about 25 times. And when I first went there in '94, it I fell in love with the people. It was a little bit of the East, it was a little bit of the West. If there was a place in Asia that had both the duality of India and America, I guess it was the Philippines, because America had a base there during World War II, and many large numbers of Filipinos are have families here, and almost half, many of the servicemen married. So anyhow, all that to say that I ended up getting very friendly with some of the families there. One of my co-authors became one of the biggest speakers in the Philippines. So it's the country I love the most in terms of outside of India that I go to the most. And it's a completion of a story. My father first went to the Philippines in 1955, the first person from his family to ever get on a plane and go overseas. So the Dunhams and the Philippines go back to almost 60, 70 years. So.
Wow, that is wonderful. And, your work basically is a lot of collaboration. You've never been alone. You've always had a collaboration and focus. Who are the major people or the major bodies that you've collaborated with on your work, the major chunk of your work?
Yeah, of course. The first part of it was collaborating with Mr. Ziglar, who gave me the ropes. Then I collaborated with Rick when we wrote Hard Headed, Soft Hearted. And that was a collaboration with the technology space. Then I collaborated with, excuse me, I collaborated with a group called the Patriot Academy back about 20 years ago with a friend of mine, also named Rick. We were both youngsters wanting to change the world. And he had a desire. He was a student of American history. And I always had a love for American history. So about 23 years ago, I started teaching American history, biblical citizenship, World War II, moral philosophy to American kids. And so that's where I am right now. I'm collaborating with the Patriot Academy, which is a big campus in Fredericksburg, Texas. And starting next year, actually this year, they've already announced it, for the next 10 years, they want me to be the dean of the Patriot Institute. So my sunset years will have me as an academic, living on campus and teaching students day in, day out. So yesterday and today, I did 8-hour classes that were fun. So I just pour my life into them, and it's quite interesting.
Krish, you come from a family where your parents have been lifelong learners. I still remember your father got his doctorate at the age of 85.
Yeah.
What an incredible human being. So tell us more about your family and the journey of your parents and the impact. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And your mother was a very powerful, beautiful woman. So what was the influence that they had, and tell us about them and their journeys?
Yeah. Amma was very instrumental in how we looked at the women of the world, in the sense that I think a lot of my mother's early on, the toughness she grew up with, eighth grade education, married to dad when she was about 14, came to live with him at 15, my brother at 17, me little shy of 20. And yet one day at the bus stop, my brother and I were standing, getting ready to go to school. And Amma shows up, and she starts in the ninth grade with going to the girls' school. She's about 20 years older than most of the girls. Then ends up going to Vishaka Women's College, becomes the president of the student union.
Wow.
Very simple woman who was just always two steps behind dad. She was as devoted a housewife as you'd find, as compassionate a mother as you find, but was never willing to settle. And she never wanted anybody to look at her as less. She said, I don't need to do anything with my education, but the reason I'm going to go and do it is to prove to you that I can do it and have it all. I can be a mother and a wife and have an education. So then she went back and did her master's, and dad and mom got their degrees at this. He got his PhD, and she got her MA at Andhra University at the same convocation.
Amazing, amazing. It's no wonder you have to live up to the expectation of that couple. Even today, your father is a learner and he's still, has wonderful cognitive powers. He talks so much of sense. It's wonderful, Krish. You're a chip of the old block. Uh, Krish, many of us fall in love. We get married to the people we dream of and want to live with. Then, marriages are, people take each other for granted. But you have always called Anila your bride, even today, after so many days. You still call her your bride. That makes it so romantic. For all the romantics out there, this man still extols the woman he's married to for many years as his bride. Tell us about that relationship and how pivotal it is that you married this beautiful girl.
Well, the concept of bride is interesting because it's actually when I first started doing it, it would do it tongue in cheek. I said, anniversaries are boring, but honeymoons are never boring. So if you call your wife bride, you'll never have an anniversary. It'll always be a honeymoon.
Wow.
But the other thing is learning to look. I can tell you without any fear of error, Meenakshi, that if it wasn't for that woman that God brought into my life all those years ago, who has prayed for me every day and cheerlead me every night, I would not be anyone's speaker. Anila is the true epitome of what we in the Bible call a Proverbs 31 woman. She is qualified, she is accomplished, she does her own work, she had a career. But again, she is one of those people that even though she's American by birth, she is the most Indian at heart person I know who in the West, I mean, all her friends are white, but you will never find a person more Indian in terms of belief. She is just a very beautiful soul. And to that end, I only add that it's symbiotic. I remember one time going to one of the school functions and a lady said, "Hey, your bride has never said a bad thing about you." And I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, you know how us women are." I said, "I don't." But then I emailed that. I said, "Hey, someone in the school said you never said a bad thing about me." She says, "Well, I have watched your clips and everywhere in the world I go where you have been before, they come hold my hand and said, 'Oh, you must be Anila. He always talks highly of you.'" And that's my advice to your viewers, your audience. If you want your marriage to thrive, brag on your spouse in their absence. So when you're in their presence, you have to live up to the hype. So
You are amazing. This sense of humor that you have, I think it's not something that you can learn. It has to come in from inside. There are a lot of people out there who want to become speakers. What is the advice you have for the young people, especially the Indians back home who look at you as a role model? And in fact, this question asked by somebody from Chennai: how do I hone my skills of speaking and how do I get humor into what I say?
well, the first on honing the skills of speaking, I tell people it's always easier to practice in class than it to perfect in cash. So before you want to get paid for it, find every free opportunity you can. I don't know how many prisons and Lions Club and Rotary Club and schools I spoke into before anybody ever paid me. I'm the epitome of what you would call a 10-year overnight success. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well, said Steve Brown from Emory University. I always believe that if you keep, and this is my favorite quote, which is attributed to me, if you do the things you need to do when you need to do them and you're not paid for them, the day will come when you can do the things you want to do and they'll pay you for them.
Amazing. Amazing.
That's the humor aspect of it is just remember there are two kinds of humor in the world, only two kinds. One is you tell funny things, and the other you tell things funny. So I'm the latter. I'm not a humor, I'm a wit, in the sense I'm an observational communicator. I can take anything and make it sound funny. And that's actually a learned trait. It's also an easier trait because then you don't need to depend on someone else's punchline. You create your own punchlines as you go along.
Krish, whether you're talking about sales or business or entrepreneurship or the ministry, you always marry your words to wit and humor. It's wonderful because when you give something serious, people are not willing to accept unless they find it really funny and exciting. Mala Ministries was founded by you and Anila in 2008, I think so. Following in it was a calling that came to you. Tell me about the ministry, the work you do, and how you give back to your homeland, India.
Yeah. So, in fact, just this afternoon, one of the kids asked me, in 1994, I had the privilege of meeting Mother Teresa when I came to India on one of my many trips. And I had taken a donation from my boss here, and we went to her ashram, and I sat with her for about 20 minutes. But as I was leaving her ashram, she had given me 10 letters. She says, "Can you mail this to the sisters in America?" And my fickle mind was wondering, I just gave you $500. I've been begging you for a picture. I didn't get a picture with her. And all the other thing that goes into the typical trappings of an egotistical young salesman. I wanted to picture with her for my own halo adjustment so I could put it on my wall and everybody could come kiss my ring, right? But she didn't give me a picture, and she gave me these 10 letters. What were the
Wow.
They were letters of encouragement. I later on wrote about it called Saintly Leadership. But I mailed the letters in the US. These were letters of encouragement to her sisters who were manning the AIDS hospices at that time in San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and DC. So after I mailed the letters, I just thought I'd acknowledge Mother Teresa, and I wrote her a note. I said, "Dear Mother Teresa, thank you for allowing me to be a small messenger in your great commission." Then she sent me a letter with a picture of her holding a child and a verse that said, "I've claimed you, da da da." But her words to me were the the precursor to Mala Ministries. The words were, "Be a little instrument in God's hands. Say yes to the least of humanity. By picking up those most deserving in the eyes of a loving God, you will have participated in the greatest good of all." Now, Mala stands for Maya and Lakshmi. Maya is my mother-in-law, and Lakshmi is, of course, my mother. So that's how I came. But Mala also means a garland in many Indian languages. So it's called the garland of God's love. So I began by teaching sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern Europe, pastors and preachers whose churches couldn't support them and who had to work for a living. So my initial desire was go teach them sales and marketing skills that allow them to make a living during the week so they won't be frustrated on the weekend, and that the calling will differ from the job. And that's how it began. And then it blossomed, and then companies started investing in it. And yeah, 2 honorary doctorates from seminaries later, Anila and I just pinch ourselves saying, all it started is because this lady sent me a letter saying, "Be a little instrument in God's hands." So
God bless you, Krish. God bless you. The world of business and personal development has evolved significantly since you started your career as a speaker. Where do you see the future of motivational speaking and leadership development together? The next decade, we're going to have a lot of people who are going to be inspired by your generation. I know they would like to be in our shoes. How are you preparing to help those children to be in your shoes tomorrow?
This season of my life has been devoted to that. Even when I come to India, different colleges and universities, I have decided that I have had a good ride. I've had the private jet flying with Mr. Ziglar. I've been in the limousines. I've shared the stage with presidents. All the good stuff has happened. And I think God got that out of the way so that I can leave it behind. I can't take anything with me. My desire is to raise up a generation of people who have pride in 3 things: always have something to look up to in the faith they have, always have something to lean on in the country they live in, and always have family to fall back on. And that will give them the trifecta. And I teach this day in, day out differently. The future of motivational speaking as such is going to change because technology has changed a lot of it. In fact, I used to be a narrative speaker. Now I speak in short bursts, and that is because of the evolution of the app. After 3 clicks, an app stops being free, and we get rid of get another app. So in order to be relevant, you have to be a quick hitter and be relevant in 3 clicks. So the future of motivational speaking will change, and people need to realize that they can't go long, drawn out. They have to be short, quick hit. Second, artificial intelligence is never going to be a remedy for natural stupidity. so, so as long as natural stupidity exists, I think we'll always have a need for someone to motivate. But, you know, I remember what Shashi Tharoor once said many years ago when he was giving a long discourse in Colorado somewhere. And he says, as long as people wake up in the morning and realize that we toil under the same sun, we hope under the same moon, and we dream under the same stars, humanity will never unite. And to the future generation of speakers, I always want to let them know this. Have the skill that allows you to make a living, but make sure you invest in the will that allows you to shape a life. Speaking is just that. You're not curing cancer and you're not God's gift to the planet. It just means you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Speaking is what you do, it's not who you are. Work on who you are and your speeches will get better.
Amazing, amazing. You know, this chat, this session, this podcast is called the Desi Dynamos. So, you know, brothers like you have taken India ahead. And the USA has been a great land of, you know, opportunity. They have hugged you and welcomed you. What are the, you know, in parting on this particular podcast, what are the things that you would like people who want to come to the USA from India, what are the learnings that you can give them specifically? Because, you know, people think it's a child's play, it's cakewalk. You just walk in and you earn these bucks. They don't know the hard work that goes in. And you are an outstanding example of starting from the last rung of the ladder. So what is your advice to all our brothers and sisters and our children who want to come to the United States of America for all the good reasons? How do they go about it?
First thing, since again, I teach American history, but I guarantee you, if we took a quiz on Indian history, I'd qualify as well as you. I've never forgotten my Indian history. But one thing I tell that your viewers and your listeners is this. When you go to any land, especially the United States, because that's the question that was asked, come with the desire to integrate once you immigrate. Don't come with the desire to irritate. Most people enjoy a new frontier try to come to the new frontier and change where they are to what they left. And that way you're disappointed twice. You just left something that you didn't like, came to someplace new, and suddenly, you know, there are places where I live, and actually you're in San Francisco. It's almost indistinguishable from India when you walk around. And I always tell people, it's not a question of your culture. I love my culture. My next trip to India will be my 80th trip since I came to America, 80. So nobody can accuse me of not loving my land. But this I say, when you go to some place, integrate. You will get the best of both worlds. The culture that shaped you, the conditions that refined you, have now brought you to a frontier that will allow you to excel.
Thank you so much, Krish Dhanam. Such an honor to have you with us. And I pray to the Lord that He leads you into those paths that you richly deserve to be. And you are having the strength in the days to come to hold hands and hearts together so that one day people will look back at the footprints that you leave on the sands of time and say, there was Zig Ziglar's favorite child. He was a child of God. Thank you so much. God bless you. Jai Hind and Vande Mataram.
God bless. Bye-bye.